the affiliated members to the Colombia-India Chamber of Commerce. It is also an immense pleasure for us to have partnered with FICI for this event, which is very important in the actual times. Buenos días a todos, mi nombre es Cristian Salamanca, soy el director ejecutivo de la Cámara Colombia-India y les doy la bienvenida a este encuentro Namaskar Alianza del Pacífico, India Colombia Business Continuity, oportunidades y retos. I would like to thank to our sponsors, Vesalius Pharma, Nine Alliance, Mr. Sharma, Brooklyn Pharma, y also to the Bogota Chamber of Commerce, who have support us in this important event. We will have, I would like to explain a little more about the dynamic of the event. Most of the interventions will be in English. Some parts we can communicate in Spanish. So we hope everyone fine with that. We have three parts of this webinar today. The first part, we will introduce all our special guests to give their words and views about the India-Colombia relationship. Second part, we will have a panel that will be moderated by Mr. Daniel Gomez, Articulation Manager from the Bogota Chamber of Commerce. And third part, we will have questions and answers. So being said that, and before going ahead, I would like to say that Namaskar is a very warm way of welcome people. Lo voy a decir en español. Namaskar tiene un significado muy especial en la India. Es una forma muy calurosa, como muy cariñosa, entrañable de saludar a la contraparte. So now I welcome Mr. Manish Shingal, Deputy Secretary General of FICI, to give his words. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christian. Good evening, everyone in India. Good morning, everybody in Colombia and Latin America. Pleasure to welcome Mr. Suresh Kumar, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Thank you, sir, for joining us today and accepting our request. Mr. Yuan Sanche, Executive Director of Pro Colombia, Government of Colombia. Mr. Hemim Mtila, President, India Colombia Chamber of Commerce. Ms. Monica Conde, Vice President of International Relations in Bogota Chamber of Commerce. They all are MOU partners. We also have an impressive array of panelists from the industry, because without hearing the industry, really no business session makes sense. So we have Mr. Nikhil Malhotra from Tech Mahindra, Mr. Kaushal Seth, an angel investor, Deep Money from Colombia, Mr. Panigrahi, who is the Director Corporate Affairs CIPLA in India, Mr. Brian Alvarez, Business Cluster Head of CIPLA Limited. I presume he's based in Colombia. Mr. Devin Narang, he's Country Head of Syndicatum Renewable Energy. He's also Senior Executive Committee member of FICI. Mr. Alessandro, who's an expert from Optima Consultants, Colombia, and Mr. Baggy Ratan, CEO of Nine Alliance. I welcome once again, everyone. I think before I start, we should thank and acknowledge the sincere efforts of all our frontline corona warriors. They are both the health workers and security staff alike, who've been doing commendable work all these months to strengthen this fight against COVID-19. And this is not only both in Colombia and India, but also around the world. Formally, on behalf of FICI, the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, it's my privilege to welcome Mr. Suresh Kumar, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Commerce, and esteemed speakers I just mentioned above. We are talking today about Namaskar Pacific Alliance. Christian has already explained what Namaskar means in India, and of course it would mean to Colombia and the Pacific Alliance countries. We are looking at talking about India-Colombia business continuity today. Why Pacific Alliance? Pacific Alliance many of you would be aware, is a trade bloc formed by Chile, Colombia, Mexico, and Peru. These all border the Pacific Ocean and hence the name. Collectively, these four countries represent 37% of Latin America's GDP. They account for 52% of its trade, and it also attracts 45% of Latin America's foreign direct investment. And that's just these four countries out of 33 countries in Latin America. The grouping needs to be seen hence in the context of 220 million people it supports. And it's not only these 220 million people it supports, it's also its alliances in terms of FTAs with major economies around the world. Uh, the most prominent one of them is the USMCA, which is of course erstwhile NAFTA. But beyond this, also each of the Pacific Alliance countries have 40 to 50 FTAs with various countries around the world. So they give you access to a much larger market, including that of Latin America. Namaskar Pacific Alliance by itself is a flagship initiative of FICCI. This is a Namaskar series of programs we do regionally. We do one in Eurasia, we do in Africa, and of course in with the Pacific Alliance countries. So this initiative basically consists of virtual exhibitions and conferences and involving the alliance countries. The main Namaskar Pacific Alliance Expo is also scheduled in later part of this year. So in the run up to that, we planned these sessions with all the four Pacific Alliance countries. Idea is to look at what could be the agenda of the larger program planned for later this year. Colombia, as you all know, is a free market economy. It's got major commercial investment ties with countries around the world I mentioned above. It's got vast farmlands, diverse cultures, colonial charm. It's also an economy which has steadily grown in the last decade. It's become both a top Latin American center and, of course, a popular tourist destination too. Over the years, India-Colombia relationship has also matured and it's been nurtured by both sides very well. And it covers all aspects of the relationship, whether it's geopolitical, commercial, or cultural. Bilateral trade is about $2 billion. It's of course grown in the last 3 years after a few years of drop. The issue is that it's largely dependent on oil trade. So we need to emerge out of that oil trade dependency because then the trade fluctuates along with the oil prices. We need to move out of that and look at the commodity trade, the non-oil commodity trade. Colombia imports a lot of vehicles, cotton textiles, pharmaceuticals, iron steel products, a lot of manufactured products from India. And we, of course, also get a lot of mineral and stones, teak wood and all from Colombia. This basket of products has to expand. In terms of FDI, it's been about $300 million, and which is Indian FDI into Colombia. It's largely in the areas of automobile and agrochemicals, oil, IT, and all. We need to look at how Colombian companies can come to India, and FICCI would be too happy to assist their initial investment decision process and also connect them with suitable partners in case they are not looking at a 100% venture but a joint venture with the Indian company. Colombia, I may mention, is also seen as a gateway to the Pacific Alliance countries. But as we move beyond that and we talk of more India, Colombia, at FICCI, we would like to suggest four aspects as an approach going forward in our relationship. The first is that India and Colombia should look at a preferential trade agreement. We are already talking to Peru. Mexico, of course, is a big destination also. But with Colombia itself, a PTA would make a lot of sense. Similarly, India-Colombia CEOs Forum could be another idea we could look at so that trade and investment both can take big strides going forward. Cooperation in the field of solar and wind energy is, I think, high on the agenda of both countries. And that's why today we have Mr. Devin Narang, who's going to give a perspective on that, especially what's happening in India. One another suggestion, and the fourth one in my list is partnerships at the university level. We could look at some internship exchange programs and technical exchange programs, because that's what will develop into future economic and people to people relationship. With these words and some ideas, I would actually pave way for some eminent panelists who are going to give us insights into this relationship. And thank you all and welcome once again.
Thank you, Mr. Manish Singhal, Deputy Secretary of FICI, for your words and proposals. I think they are great proposals, and we hope to take them forward with our allies, governments, of course, with your support. Now, I would like to welcome Ms. Mónica Conde, Vice President of International Relations and Cooperation from the Bogota Chamber of Commerce, an ally that has helped to promote India in many, many ways. So, Ms. Mónica Conde, welcome.
Christian, thank you. Buenos días in Colombia, good evening in India. I'm going to begin in English. It's a pleasure to welcome you on behalf of the Bogota Chamber of Commerce, the webinar Namaskar Pacific Alliance, which main objective is to identify opportunity for investment and collaboration in strategic sectors between the industry in India and the countries of the Pacific Alliance. First, I want to warmly welcome Mr. Manish Singhal, Secretary General of FICI, Mr. Jaime Mantilla, President of the India-Colombia Chamber of Commerce and member of the Board of Directors of the BCC, and Mr. Juan Sanchez, Executive Director for India and MENA Region for Colombia, Mr. Suresh Kumar, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Commerce, Government of India, and Christian Salamanca, a friend and Director of the India-Colombia Chamber of Commerce, and all the panelists for this morning and this evening in India. I want to thank the India-Colombia Chamber of Commerce for always having the Bogota Chamber of Commerce for the development of its different activities, and FICI, our main ally in India, for this kind of activity. For our chamber, it's important to develop this kind of webinars since we are committed to promoting and strengthening the support of our entrepreneurs and to supporting economies in our region, for which we work together for our allies. I hope that the content of this event is of the great value to all of you. Buenos días para todos, es un placer dar la bienvenida en nombre de la Cámara de Comercio de Bogotá a este webinar Pacífica Namaskar al Pacific Alliance o Alianza del Pacífico, el cual tiene como objetivo identificar oportunidades de inversión y colaboración en sectores estratégicos entre la industria colombiana y la industria de India y la industria de los países de la Alianza del Pacífico. Agradecerle al secretario general de FICI, el señor Manish Singhal, un aliado estratégico con quien tenemos un memorando de entendimiento, a nuestro miembro de junta directiva, el doctor Jaime Mantilla, a Juan Sánchez de ProColombia, al señor Suresh Kumar del Ministerio de Comercio de India, del gobierno indio, y a Cristian Salamanca, que es un gran amigo de la Cámara de Comercio y director ejecutivo de la Cámara Colombia-India. Agradecerle, por supuesto, a la Cámara India y a FICI por desarrollar en conjunto siempre con la Cámara de Comercio de Bogotá estas actividades que son en beneficio de nuestros empresarios. Para nosotros, desarrollar estos eventos es importante porque estamos comprometidos con el desarrollo, la reactivación económica y la promoción y fortalecimiento de las exportaciones de nuestros empresarios y el apoyar las economías de la región. Sin más, espero que el contenido de este evento sea de gran valor para todos ustedes y nuevamente muy buenos días para todos. Namaskar in India.
Muchas gracias, Mónica, por tus palabras y por estar siempre pendiente de todos estos eventos que hacemos aquí en la Cámara Colombia-India. Queremos dar también la bienvenida a todas las personas que se han venido conectando. Es una interacción entre inglés y español. Esperamos que sacar provecho de toda esta interacción. A continuación, quiero dar la bienvenida al señor Juan Esteban Sánchez de ProColombia, quien está en India, con quien también trabajamos muy cercanamente, es un aliado estratégico. ProColombia está haciendo una labor inmensa para promocionar las exportaciones. So I welcome now Mr. Juan Esteban Sánchez from ProColombia in India a very strategic ally and an organization that promotes with a lot of care and empower the exportations of Colombian products to the world. So I welcome Mr. Juan Esteban.
Christian, thank you. Thank you very much. Namaskar for everybody here in India. Namaskar. Bienvenidos en Colombia. On behalf of the Ambassador of Colombia, Mr. Álvaro Sandoval, I would like just to say thank you to Fiki for the invitation of this important event. I would like just to say hello to Mr. Manish Singhal. Thank you again to you, Mr. Manish, because of this invitation. I would like just to say hello to Mr. Suresh Kumar, Joint Secretary of the Minister of Commerce of the Government of India, Monica Conde from the Bogota Chamber of Commerce, of course, Mr. Jaime Mantilla, un saludo. It's really nice just to be close to you, even in a virtual scenario like this. And Christian Salamanca, who is, he was saying that we are just working together, but you know, this is almost just living together virtually because we are all the time just trying to promote Colombian businesses and Indian businesses from different sides. So I would like just to do some opening remarks. When I was just told to speak in this event, it was a simple question, is how they're gonna be the promotional strategy between Colombia and India will change because of the COVID situation now. So it was a quite difficult question. Actually, I was just talking with Mr. Charuduta Panigrahi, a really good friend from CIPLA, talking about this situation. And we together were just having some common comments in here. And Mr. Charu, I won't say anything about what you're going to say, okay? But the thing is, there are two words that come to my mind about what is going to be the situation between India and Colombia in the promotion side. And is that two words are recovering, economic recovering. This is important. Everybody in the world is talking about this. And the other thing is the small fear about protectionism. You know, Christian and I, we are just working every day, trying just to promote exportation from Colombia, exportation to Colombia from India, and trying just to promote investment projects between India and Colombia. And we are a little bit scared about what is going to be happening because of the companies, they are taking a look to the cash flow, they are taking a look to the risks, and they are just replanning everything about the expansion and the future investment and the future plans. So what can we do as Pro-Colombia and the Chamber of the Indian and Colombian Chamber of Commerce, the Bogota Chamber of Commerce, and even the people from Invest in Bogota, what we are doing now? We are just reading the market, okay? We are talking, everybody's talking about a new normal. I don't like this expression because normality is this one, okay? But what are going to be the situation after? We are going to find for new channels in order just to promote our products. Indian products in Colombia, that Christian is doing that, and Colombian products in India. And the best way is just taking a look that the channel, the retail and the channel, they are changing all the time. So we are looking for really appropriate partners in order just to bring the condition to Indian business people into Colombia to go with the products, and really good partners here in India in order just to try the Colombian people to come here, you know, with all the trust, with all the condition in order just to open a little bit the market. Okay, talking about investment, I would like just to say that with the Externado University of Colombia, we were developing an investigation, a research about what will be the condition and the perfect messages in order just to explain to the Indian people that Colombia will be a really good field in order just to have a kind of commercial expansion, and after maybe a place in which the companies could be settled in order just to expand commercially to the Latin American countries. And this beautiful study that's going to be released maybe in 1 month, Mr. Christian, this is a news, they have some really good conclusion, and some conclusion that maybe Christian and I, we were just talking when we were having some lunch in here. The first thing is that political risk is really important for Indian companies in order just to have a commercial expansion and even an investment expansion. The other is security, okay? Colombia is improving And I do believe that for Indian people, Colombia is a secure place. The other one is that the macroeconomic stability, and you know that Colombia has the macroeconomic stability since maybe 20 to 30 years ago. We used to have inflation of almost 30% in the 80s, and now we are having an inflation on around 3.5%. The other common conclusion in here is we have just to work on the difference on cultural and geographical distance. Yeah. So how can we just explain to the Colombian people how Indian business people behave and vice versa? Okay. And with Christian and the Invest in Bogota and the people that are here in ProColombia, we are just trying just to read, to send the messages in order just to bring close the cultures between India and Colombia. The other one is how can we ease the weight of doing businesses in Colombia for Indian people? And we are trying to improve in that. We are just working on this because of the recovery situation. We are going to have really good benefit for Indian companies in order just to go to Colombia and then to do some partnership with Colombian companies. The other thing is the free trade agreements. At this moment, we have almost 16 free trade agreements running. And in the close future, we're going to have 2 more free trade agreements running. So for Indian companies, and I'm taking some word from Mr. Martin Ibarra, that is a really good friend of ProColombia, who says we have to bring this information to Indian companies in order that we want just to import, exporters. And the condition in order just to the Indian companies to have some small operation here in Colombia and then to export to that country that we have really good condition in order to export is a really good key driver in order just to take in consideration. For example, CIPLA, and we were just talking with Mr. Charudis, want just to have a small operation in Colombia, they could have the benefit of the free trade agreement to the United States in order just to bring the product from Colombia to the United States with the brand CIPLA, okay? Something like that. And the last one is the promotion is important the whole time, okay? So people from Invest in Bogota, people from the Chamber of Commerce of Bogota, people from the Chamber, the Indian and Colombian Chamber of Commerce, we have to work more, and we are just prepared for this. So this is some remarks, Christian, and people, in order just to say that we are just working for you. We are working for trying just to increase the bilateral commerce and the investment. It's not talking about just bringing Indian companies to Colombia. We are just working in bringing Colombian companies to India as well. And we in ProColombia, we are prepared. We are a professional team with almost 500 people just working for this. And anything you need, please, we are going to be really pleased just in order to help you. So, Christian, thank you very much. And again, congratulations for this event. And I hope ProColombia and the Colombian and Indian Chamber of Commerce can work together more. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Juan Esteban. Thank you so much for your insights, your input. I believe, been working in the chamber for almost 8 years, I believe we need that push to strengthen the relationship. It's been done. There are many organizations. The chamber is there. Friends of India Association is there. CECICAM is there with the External University, ProColombia Invest. So there is more opportunity to grow. Quiero agradecer a los patrocinadores nuevamente, a Vesalius Pharma, Nueva Alliance, a Sharma Pharmaceutical Private Limited, a Proclean Pharma, quienes nos han apoyado en este proceso de este evento que es muy importante. Ahora, I would like to give a very warm welcome to Mr. Suresh Kumar, Joint Secretary from the Ministry of Commerce from the Government of India. Your Excellency, welcome to this panel.
Thank you, Christian. Good morning to all the participants who have joined from Colombia, and good evening to all my friends and colleagues who have joined from India. Thank you, Manish, for giving me this opportunity. It's in fact a great opportunity during these difficult times to connect digitally with our partners and share some time share some of our thoughts and some of our common interest, so that we can prove that even COVID is not capable of keeping us away, keeping us apart, even during these tough times. We are in our business, and we are going to continue with our business, and we will come back strongly once the situation improves in both the countries and world over. So, in fact, I'm very happy that very good participation is there today from both the sides, from Colombia as well as from Indian side. There is very good participation. I'm very happy to see all of you here. In fact, about 10 days back, I had a detailed video conference with the Indian ambassador in Colombia. We were discussing about the future opportunities post COVID. How are we going to tackle? But as was rightly pointed out by by the earlier speaker also, even now the situation is not very clear. We are all looking at, globally, almost all the countries are looking at contraction of their economy during this financial year. We don't know to what extent the contraction is going to happen, but we are all hopeful and we are all optimistic that in the next year, 2021, we are going to rebound with much more vigor, and we are going to come back. So with this background, let us briefly see what potential we have between the two countries. This unprecedented condition actually has thrown great opportunities as well as challenges to us. The post-COVID scenario, as was mentioned, it is not going to be like what we have experienced in last many decades. It's going to be a new world. It's going to be new relationship. It's going to be new equations all over. This offers a great opportunity for, especially for the countries in the Latin American region, including Colombia, to have better relationship with countries like India. And for India also, it's a great opportunity to reach out to the new parts of the world. Generally, we feel that we are actually very distant. We are actually on the two sides of the globe. So generally, we think that it is very difficult to do business when we are actually separated by geography. But this scenario will definitely change in future. In the new emerging world, I find that India is going to have very strong trade, cultural and diplomatic relationship with many countries in the Latin American region, including Colombia. Already Manish has mentioned about the trade scenario. The overall trade of these two countries are hovering around 2 to 2.2 billion US dollars, with India's exports touching about 1 to 1.2 billion, and Colombian export to India also on the same range, about 1 billion. Actually, this is just tip of the iceberg. If we see globally, for any businessman in Colombia, for any industry in Colombia, opening the market in India is going to provide him more than $1 trillion of opportunity. Even today, India imports almost about $515 billion worth of goods, and this is going to increase in the next couple of years. This is going to double or triple. Today, Colombia's export to the world is only about $40 billion, whereas India's export is almost about $330 billion today. So for a country like Colombia, getting an opportunity in a market like India is actually like going out to many countries. Instead of going to 10 or 15 countries, you just have to come to one country to get a bigger market. It's a great opportunity. Similarly for India, though Colombia is GDP wise or population wise smaller, Colombia is rich in a lot of natural resources, including petroleum crude, gold, coal, and we in India, we want these resources. We are looking globally for getting these resources in a competitive way. This opens up a lot of opportunity for India. So Indian businessmen also already have a lot of footprints in the Colombian area, but many other companies, like I will only name a few sectors. One is the pharmaceutical sector. Now, pharmaceutical sector in India today contributes 20% of the global pharmaceutical sector. And Indian drugs are known to be very, very cheap in as far as the price is concerned. It's almost 30% lower cost as compared to the drugs from the US or from the European region. So India is able to provide drugs at almost 30% less price. Already Indian pharma companies have presence in the Colombian market, but it's also a very small share. It's only about 89 to 90 million dollar only is the market share, which has to go up. Similarly, automobiles, especially two-wheelers and three-wheelers, India already has very good presence there, which has to further increase. Automobile components, spare parts, these are other sectors. Similarly, tire, automobile tires. These are the sectors which we have to further explore. Similarly, cotton yarn, synthetic yarn, fabrics, chemicals, plastics. These are some of the other items where we find a lot of potential to further do. We are already in the final stages of the joint feasibility study with Colombia to talk discussing about a trade agreement. You may be aware, some of you may be aware, we already had signed agreement to take up a joint feasibility study, and very soon we will be able to start. As soon as possible we are going to do it, and which can lead to a trade agreement between the two countries. So this can open up a lot of opportunities, because today we find there are, though the general tariff rates in Colombia are fairly low, there are a lot of technical and non-technical barriers for the Indian companies to go to the Colombian market. This can be eliminated or reduced only through a strong negotiation for a trade agreement, which is what we are looking at. And one good news is that during this COVID period, in fact, Colombia has actually reduced the tariff, brought it to zero, brought it to nil for almost about 28 tariff lines, mainly including medical supplies, agriculture commodities like maize, sorghum, soya bean, oil cake, etc., which is almost zero now. Now we have already communicated to all the export promotion councils in India to actually look at this. This entire 28 tariff lines itself contribute to about $2.8 billion worth of export every year. So there is an opportunity for Indian companies to immediately tap on this. And the other potential sectors, which I have just now mentioned, and also Manish also has already mentioned in his speech, these are the areas where the Indian companies can explore. Similarly, as I have already mentioned, India look forward for not only trade, for investment, for partnership in science and technology, for partnership in tourism, culture. These are the areas where India is looking at not just trade, but investment and partnership between the companies and between the institutions in both the countries. So we look forward for these possibilities in future, and I am sure that the post-COVID world, however it turns out to be, definitely going to be positive for India and Colombia. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Look forward to having further interaction with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. Suresh Kumar, Joint Secretary of the Ministry of Commerce from the Government of India, for your words. I believe today's event is a milestone, because this is giving the route that we should follow to promote India-Colombia business relationship. So now I welcome Mr. Daniel Gomez, Articulation Manager from the Bogota Chamber of Commerce, who will lead the panel of experts today. So Daniel, you're welcome.
Good morning, everyone, and good evening to everyone as well. I would like to give a special thank you to Christian and to all the organizers and the people who spoke before me. Here at the Bogota Chamber of Commerce, we are aiming at strengthening the business ecosystem and more than 500,000 firms that are registered here in Bogota. That's a third of the whole country's companies, and we're focusing on over 17 sectors that are very important sectors for Colombia. And the new renewable energy sector. For that, I would like to welcome Mr. Nikhil Malhotra. He's the Global Head of Innovation for Tech Mahindra in India. Mr. Kaushal Seth, co-founder of Deep Money AI, Sofa Solutions. He's based here in Colombia, both companies from the IT sector. From the pharmaceutical sector, I would like to welcome Mr. Charuduta Panigrahi. He's the Director for Corporate Affairs at CIPLA, and Mr. Brian Alvarez, who's the Country Manager for this same firm. The renewable energy sector, we have Mr. Devin Narang. He's the Country Head of India at Syndicatum Renewable Energy. And Mr. Alejandro Lucio, who's the Director of Optima Consultancy here in Colombia. I would also like to welcome Mr. Bagir Ratan. He's the CEO of Nine Alliance and an expert in Colombia and Indian relationships. How the panel will work is I will address one question for each sector, starting with the IT sector. Each of the panelists will have around 4 to 5 minutes to answer this question. We only have around 30 minutes. So I will let you know when the time is running out so you can wrap up. And at the end, we will have about 25 minutes questions from the audience. So starting with the IT sector, what I would like to ask you is, how do you believe that the experience of innovation from India can help support the process of innovation and development here in Colombia? And I would also like to know if there are any sector specializations from the IT sector in India that could help. Because, for example, here in Bogota, we are aiming at providing IT services mainly for the financial sector, the health sector, and the government sectors. But of course, there are many other vertical approaches that one could have, and I would like to know if there are any specializations also in India. So please, Mr. Nikhil Malhotra, and then Mr. Kaushal Seth.
So thank you so much. I think it's a pleasure. First of all, let me thank Vicky and of course both the parties in Colombia and India for letting us know. So just to give you a brief background, I'm the Global Head of Innovation, and my sectors have been typically on research that we do on AI, machine learning, and some of the typical new elements and new technologies. I think there are various sectors in which Colombia and India can really partner today. And I'll just go with no specific order. I think you've already mentioned that healthcare post-COVID is going to become one of the most important sectors to play. And healthcare sector involves a lot of elements. I think India, when we were faced with a pandemic, we have essentially looked at the COVID-19 equation. And this equation will now come into dictionaries as well, where we say that if you maintain your healthcare facilities below a certain level or above a certain threshold, then the graph of pandemic would not touch you. I think the reasons why countries went into lockdown was only to keep the growth of pandemic under that graph. There's also a subsequent pressure in some of the countries like India on the healthcare facility sector and healthcare and hospitals. So telehealth would essentially become very, very prominent as a place that we essentially look towards when we essentially look at healthcare facilities and healthcare structure. And I've been very fortunate enough to work with the government of India in providing telehealth for about 1.35 billion people as a kind of a system that we are doing in Tech Mahindra, where people can come in and get consultation as well. So that's one area. But along with this, I think when you go towards health, and of course, we've got Charu over there who can actually talk more about the pharmacy, there would be a greater need for now to look towards drug discovery and drug research as well. And a lot of these components of AI and machine learning and whatever new technologies that we apply would now have to be subsequently made for this drug discovery and drug research. There's a large component of research that we are doing in the sector that I have formed in R&D in Tech Mahindra. And we were instrumental also in finding out computational analysis on how this COVID virus can actually be acted upon by some of the drugs, FDA or the Indian science or Ayurvedic medicines as well. And there is research papers that we have published across. So that's a second area which could be really, really fruitful for collaboration. The third, I think education and access to education would change in the post-COVID world. Education would become much more online, much more virtual, and education would require not just the connectivity and network operator to ensure that you reach with your education material to a specific student, but also ensuring as to how you measure the progress and also how students behave during a class in a virtual mode. I think all our kids in India have started undergoing now a virtual school, but there are still challenges in which how teachers could monitor and things like that. So that could be a second area of digital IT innovation that probably Colombia and India could take together. The third area where I could look at is agri-tech. And we are doing a lot of work in our research and development sector, but agriculture would turn into a new leaf if we go forward. I think, first of all, from an Indian sector or an Indian standpoint, we have done a lot of research from the farmers' point of view of how they feel their produce or their materials could actually go into the market. And I'm sure there would be certain geographical challenges that Colombian farmers may also face. I think those are areas where digital technologies could come in and, we can essentially work together. There are, of course, suggestions like, for example, AI-based yield systems. People can give crop suggestions using technology, but farmers can reach out to certain components. And Indian sector, we found out that farmers also do not keep an account of their own produce digitally. So can we help them faster? Can we ensure that they are making an account for their digital produce? And simple solutions, but more innovative for the fact that they can actually be hit across on partners as well. I'm sure Colombia is also working on AI in a lot of sense. And AI from a large perspective would also have to go through an ethical switch perspective. While everybody wants to use artificial intelligence, the component of ethics would have to come into AI as well. This is a separate research sector that we do with World Economic Forum in Tech Mahindra and the research and development wing, but that is an area where Colombia can also participate. I think I just want to end up because 3 or 4 minutes would be up. But my suggestion would be, as Manish really mentioned earlier, the idea was, do we have Academia Connect, which is fructified between Colombia and India? And that's where a large research sector would take place. And people can, students can actually do internships. We can get them into the newer technology and cutting edge bases like quantum computing, AI, augmented and virtual reality, etc. Are we also talking about joint IPs? And is there a provision that we are essentially talking about joint patents or joint IPs between the two countries? And how is the process itself? So if I make a patent in India, does it get... Sorry.
So time is running up. We have 30 seconds.
I just have got 2 or 3 more. Maybe the idea of living labs between the two countries that really work well. So I would really end up with that, saying that this is the way in which innovation for both countries can progress and both of them can participate together.
Thank you very much, Nikhil, and sorry for rushing. Please, Mr. Kaushal Seth, and then we will address renewable energy sector before the pharmaceutical. Mr. Narang has to leave for another call. Kaushal.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot, Nikhil. That was great. I think that was a great base from technology point of view, and it's a pleasure to say hello to all the participants here today. Like from our point of view, what we are looking at being Indian entrepreneurs based out of Colombia, and from what we have seen in this current scenario, I think there are 2 or 3 key points where I'll complement what Nikhil was mentioning. Because yeah, Nikhil is right, like in terms of health, education, technologies, there are a lot of opportunities. I think there are 2 things which are changing. One is like the enablement part of the business process, where how you meet people, how you start a business deal, how you create these opportunities. I think that aspect is changing radically now in this new era, because a lot of relationships that we are building is now through technological and digital platforms. So that is where one opportunity where I see where like both the countries India and Colombia, and also especially using platform like Chamber of Commerce and FICCI, I think one of the key areas there you can play a role is in creating this trust environment, because a lot of these businesses that we'll be doing is through digital platforms where probably we won't be even meeting people or our counterparts. So I think that is one area in technology where more and more trust has to be built into this technology so that we can build these relationships going forward. The second aspect which I also see is that there are some common opportunities in Colombia. Like although it is smaller in size, but there are some special areas where I think so it can complement and also do business with Colombia and add value to Indian value chain. Just how we can benefit from, let's say, India over here. There is some specific talent here in terms of orange economy, in terms of culture, entertainment. There are some areas here, specifically in health, where we focus on areas like fitness, tourism. So I think there are some specific areas where we can collaborate and we can definitely take advantage because now the definition of globalization will change a little bit, because we would have globalized solution, but localized delivery platforms. So I think that is where we can benefit one country from the other. And also there is definitely some common threats like cyber security is going to be a challenge because definitely there are some areas where with more and more people going online, there'll be definitely some challenges in terms of cyber security and new regulations that will play an important role in doing business across the borders. So I think definitely there are some new sectors which are coming up in this space. And that is where I think so Chamber of Commerce and FICCI can help these two countries in building this trust environment, ensuring that solutions can be delivered through digital platforms and especially kind of working together in regulations around sharing of information, cyber security, because I think these are the key elements which will ensure where we can take the advantage of this new era that we will have, because maybe COVID might be temporary for a few years, but the changes that we are going to live through are permanent. And it's a great opportunity for all the talent and entrepreneurs which are there on both sides of the world. Yeah. I think sectors, especially in AI and machine learning, are the ones we are looking at in financial services and also a lot of work on research. That is where we are focusing.
Thank you very much, Kaushala, and that was right on time. So next we will go with the pharmaceutical sector. Before that, I would like to thank you again. A brief thanks to all of the sponsors, Vesalius Pharma, Sharma Pharmaceutical, PVT, Nine Alliance, and Proclaim Pharma for helping organize this event. And now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Devin Narang from the renewable energy sector and Mr. Alejandro Lucio. The question for this sector is basically the same. We're wondering if India is indeed a source for models and for technologies in renewable energies that can help bridge gaps or needs that Colombia may have. We know that India is quickly developing and becoming a model in this sense, and we would like to know your view on this.
Thank you, Daniel. Am I audible?
Yes.
Sir, you are.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, and a very good morning to also my friend Sanchez, who I met exactly a year ago in FICCI, and I remember having lunch with you exactly a year ago at Indian Accent. Now, coming specifically to the renewable energy sector, let me give you some statistics first. India has around 80,000 megawatts of renewable energy plants currently operating. And you could roughly say about 35,000 of solar and 37,000 of wind, and then we have some bioenergy. Now, absolutely, India can help Colombia build its renewable energy sector in three possible ways. One is bioenergy. Bioenergy is simply taking farmers' waste, the agri waste, burning them in boiler, generating electricity, which gives you 24/7 base load power. Solar is peaking our power, so you need some base load power on which solar can ride. Till such time, battery technology becomes affordable. The second is wind, and of course, if you have if wind mapping has been done in Colombia, then wind is another way forward. Wind, we get most of our turbines globally, so really there is no competitive edge India would have. But in bioenergy and in solar, India has a huge competitive edge. Apart from the modules, which India would be, where capacity in India is coming up in the next 2 years, we have developed the structures, frames, and other equipments required for solar, which makes India the cheapest place to put a solar plant. So we could always transfer this knowledge to a businessman in Colombia. And in the bioenergy sector, the opportunity is again huge because all boilers and turbines are made in India. Although it's a long gestation period, it takes 18 months for a plant to come up, but that can also be done. And of course, if you take hydro into renewable energy also, and if there is a lot of rivers available in Colombia, then that is another sector which can be developed from India. So opportunity is endless, and it's tremendous in my view. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Narang. So I would like to give the floor now to Mr. Alejandro Lucio. Alejandro.
Do you hear me? Hello, Daniel?
We can hear you, yes.
Yeah. Hello, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Daniel. Thank you very much, and good evening to everyone in India. Thank you for the invitation to the Colombian Indian Chamber and to the Bogota's Chamber of Commerce. I'm going to use my 5 minutes just to complement a bit what was saying by Mr. Narang. But I want to give a bit of context of what's happening in Colombia in terms of renewable energy. Just for everyone in India, especially to have a better understanding on where we are and what's happening in Colombia, just a few statistics and data for you guys to bear in mind. We in Colombia, we have now there is an installed capacity of generation of around 17,000 megawatts to serve a peak demand of around 10,000 megawatts. So, of course, a much smaller market than the one presented for India, but still big enough for interest. That being said, please bear in mind that 70% of our installed capacity comes from hydro generation. We are a very rich country in terms of water resources, and that's why mainly our installed capacity so far is hydro, with a 30% of, let's say, a backup kind of system based on thermal generation, mainly gas and coal. That being said, in the last 3 to 4 years, there's been a lot of changes in terms of public policy and regulation favoring investment in renewable energy in Colombia. This is not only because of how competitive these technologies have become in the latest years, but also because as we are so dependent on hydro generation, we are also very sensible, and we've been very highly impacted by climate change. Basically, remember that we are based on the equator, and we've been affected more and more by El Niño phenomena. These are in Colombia. El Niño phenomena bring very dry seasons, and every more and more very longer. Technologies, the renewable energy technologies, we are rich in terms of also resources on wind and solar. As being in the equator, we have basically summer season during the whole year in some regions of Colombia, and also in some regions of Colombia, we are very rich in terms of wind resources. So that being said, and because of the crisis that we have had in the past, because of the dry seasons, the public policy and the regulation has moved to favor renewable energy investment. We have a law implemented on the year 2018, establishing fiscal, tax, and accounting benefits for investment on renewable energy. We have regulated the participation of a small-scale distributed energy in the grid, favoring the exchange of energy for self-generators and distributed generators. That's been implemented. All of this is coming from 2018, so it's basically new, but the investment is already coming, especially from Europe and China, as you may imagine. To summarize, there were also a renewable energy auction launched last year in Colombia, and a reliability charge auction also that favored the investment of around 2,500 megawatts of new renewable energy production starting 2022 and 2023 in Colombia. So the perspectives for the generation system in Colombia are basically focused on renewable energy, with still some backup on gas production. All of those projects mainly based, Mr. Naran, on wind projects.
Yeah. We have 30 more seconds.
Okay. All this investment is based nowadays on wind and solar projects, Mr. Narang, but I agree with you that the possibilities of biofuel generation in Colombia are huge, because you need to complement this solar and wind variable generation with much more firm generation. My point is that the opportunities and market is moving, and investment is welcome.
Thank you very much, Alejandro. We have a question for Narang, and since he...
Daniel, I need to leave. I'm extremely sorry. My colleagues in FICCI will take questions, and I'll be happy to answer the questions directly or on email. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Narang.
Bye.
So we will go to the pharmaceutical sector now. Mr. Charuduta Panigrahi and Mr. Brian Alvarez. The question here is, do you believe that Colombia is prepared to be a pharmaceutical hub for India in Latin America? And what do you think would be required in order for this to happen?
Thank you, Daniel. Thanks everyone here. I see a lot of friends in this panel. Thanks, Mr. Singhal. Thanks, Mr. Kumar. And thanks a lot, my friend, Juan Sanchez. I'll take this question first part, and I would request my colleague, Brian Alvarez, to take the next part of this question. Yes, of course, we believe that Colombia can be the hub, and we have also shared this idea and our vision for Colombia with the pharma security presentation we had with the ministry not long ago. And we have this belief that not only for India, but Colombia, we foresee Colombia possibly to be the pharma hub of LATAM. Having said that, a few points I would mention here, which could help the business and also the pharmaceutical hub that we foresee for Colombia. One, the structural reforms. How do we see, because biosimilar wave is the next futuristic thing that we see in pharma, and this can be for the COVID times and can be for after the COVID times. So how do we see the structural reforms happening in Colombia? Cipla, with its rich experience of more than 85 years, global experience, would be happy to support the government of Colombia in any which way of advising in an advisory role. And this I'm saying besides the market access. Market access for our products is one aspect of our partnership that we look at with the government of Colombia. But the advisory role, more importantly, is is a very critical way to go forward. Number one, and number two is how do we see we build the capacity of the healthcare workers, the capacity of the health sector in Colombia. How can we do that? During COVID times, I think many of my colleagues also touched upon this point. During COVID times, we could, without further delay, could start a training program of healthcare workers online at various levels. It could be a pilot with one particular province, it could be a pilot with one particular primary healthcare center, or we could look at developing their capacities. We could look at a quick training program. That's a second offer that we have. And the third thing is how do we develop market access? So how do we see that good, high quality oncology products, HIV drugs, uh, COVID drugs reach Colombia and the people are benefited? Now I would request my colleague Brian to take over. Hi, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you, Charo. I'm not so popular as you, but let's try to see if we can actually have a help out with the question also. So, guys, so basically on the question of the hub, since I'm also a cluster manager, so I manage a lot of countries in India and Latin America. Basically, Colombia is what we are trying to also work on to be the hub, basically as a CIPLA company. The reason is basically that Colombia has a really strong regulatory entity, which is called INVIMA. It's a CAT 4. But also this regulatory entity is also flexible for some of the products. Biological, it's much easier to actually be able to get the biological here than in Mexico or Brazil, for example. For the other point is Colombia is actually well connected. They have a really good airlines and they have a really good connection with all the countries of Latin America, which we are actually doing. So the advantage of this is basically in some countries of Central America, and Mexico also, the dossiers that you guys can actually submit here in Colombia can actually be copy paste in Central America, having a fast track, having one formula, one packaging, one brand, and having the connection to be able to connect to the other countries. The other thing is fiscally, Colombia has free zones. So on the free zones, to make the connection to the other countries, we have the advantage of getting the product here and be able to dispatch the product to the other countries in the amount that it's actually needed, trying to simplify the operations. And in this case, Colombia actually is really well positioned also, basically in the middle of Latin America, making it also pretty much strong for that kind of decision. We are working also on that. And basically answering the question is, this is a good place to actually to make a hub. CIPLA being the company that we are, more than 85 years, more than 44 manufacturing plants. Actually, we have chosen to start from Colombia to actually expand on the rest of Latin America because of this. So the advantage of this, we're actually working also on specific products. For example, on HIV, which we are the leading company on generics from HIV, we are able to get the products in Colombia registrations, be able to get into the Central American country, the Caribbean country, getting into the Mexico, getting also in Chile, etc. But also based on the hub, which is the central base where we are, which is in Colombia. So CIPLA is actually well known because of its big portfolio. And we have found a place to start in Latin America as our brand, as CIPLA, and be able to expand from here. So also on the COVID-19 kind of situation that we're having, we have been also allowed by Gilead to be able to manufacture the products and be able to give it to the countries where the licensing has actually been given to us. And remdesivir is one of the products that we are able to actually sell, and we are still using this same kind of hubbing from Colombia, actually. So Daniel, I don't want to pass the time that we have. So yeah, I think this answered the question.
Thanks,
And
Brian.
that was perfect. Thank you very much.
And quickly, Daniel,
Sharu?
one more point to sum up. I would
Yes.
say immediately after this, we would be happy to play the pivotal role along with FICCI, Government of India, and Government of Colombia to put our thoughts for the pharma sector and make this happen on an advisory role. Look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all. Last but not least, I would like to address a question for Mr. Bagir Ratan. You're not only one of the sponsors of this event, but you're also a consultant and an expert for relationships between these two countries. So I would like to know, and after having heard what our 6 panelists have said, what is your view on how collaboration can deepen between the two countries, and how do you believe that the future of this bilateral relationship would be?
Oscar el plomero. Híjole, yo estoy en llamada ahorita. Bueno, pero que pase para poner silicona.
Brian. Somebody else is on the speaking across at the moment. It's been a very interesting session listening to everybody in the experts in their own fields about what the potential of business is in those areas with Colombia and India. I have been very fortunate that I'm a very old man, 64 years old, worked in virtually global atmosphere for many years. I used to own a pharmaceutical company in the UK. I have worked in renewable energy, many areas which we've discussed today. From a businessman's perspective, one of the biggest things that hinders business is red tape. In the pharma area, there's so many things that can happen from a governmental point of view, which can ease the business restrictions that are in place between India and Colombia to make that business expand. In the renewable sector as well, looking at the solar panel business, there are lots of opportunities for Indian companies to do something here in Colombia. I think Torona Park is one area where an Indian company has installed solar panels. But to expand this business, there are limitations. Again, government issues. Setting up a business is not difficult in Colombia for Indian companies to come here. But understanding labor relations, the taxation side, all of these areas, if they can be simplified, business could really expand. My personal experience, I've been in Colombia now for 12 years. You could say people like Christian and myself, we are the bridge between India and Colombia. I am married to a Colombian lady, and Christian is married to an Indian lady. So we are probably the forefront of our relationships here. But we have Indian clients who have invested in Colombia. We noticed that they had a lot of difficulty in understanding, in particular, the labor laws. They are complicated here. Easy for us to do, easy for us to manage because we are here locally. But for foreign companies coming here, for them it is difficult. So I would say that the biggest thing, the biggest challenge really is how to simplify the laws that govern businesses in Colombia as well as in India. Because I know I have done business in India. There are similar problems there. How to simplify, how to cut through the red tape to allow business to flourish. Being the age I am, I've been through many crises, financial crises since the 1970s to date. COVID is another crisis. There are people who will lose money, lose businesses, but these are also opportunities to make extraordinary profits, as we have seen in the logistics area, in the food distribution area. So I would not say there's doom and gloom in everywhere. We will get over COVID. It is a matter of time. Business will expand. In business, you have to take a medium to long-term view, not a short-term view in investment. So I would say Colombia is open for Indian companies to come and invest here. India is open for Colombian companies to go and invest in India. There's a lot of matter of trust that needs to be built up between the two countries, the two governments, the two organizations to promote this. Pro-Colombia, Chamber of Indian Colombian Chamber of Commerce, the Bogota Chamber of Commerce, they are all working towards this goal of getting the businesses to grow. Welcome to Colombia for any Indian listeners that are there, businessmen. Cipla used to be one of my suppliers in the UK, where I owned a pharma company, a great company to work with. I'm currently working on a biomass project in Kerala, which I'm hoping to bring to Bogota, because I believe Bogota is perfectly placed to manage the waste and to perhaps set up a biomass electricity generation plant here. So there are opportunities. You just have to work hard. There are barriers, but we have to overcome them. But I would strongly suggest that pressure is put on the governments to ease the restrictions, the red tape, to allow the business to flourish. I hope, Daniel, I haven't taken too much time. I can talk a lot about the industry, especially the pharmaceutical industry here in Colombia. One of the biggest problems in Colombia we have is the reliance upon originators' products, pharmaceutical products from the USA. This idea that generic products are not good enough, it is a barrier, really, and it's a matter of educating the population here that generic products are as good as the originators' products. There's a huge price discrepancy here. There needs to be some real changes in the way medicine is dispensed in Colombia, where even pharmacies put pressure on patients to buy the originator's product when there's a cheaper alternative available in a generic form. These are really fundamental issues that need to be addressed.
Thank you very much, Baggy. We have a little time. Some people have already asked questions. There's one here for Alejandro from Praj. The question is, what is the future for sugar and ethanol sector in Colombia this year and the next?
Well, basically, I mean, there are already up and running many projects on biofuel generating power in Colombia. As I said before, in the short term, I mean, when the prices on sugar internationally, power generation is being an alternative way of using sugar and you know, making profitable that industry through power generation. And as I was saying, as we are moving towards variable energy on wind and solar more and more, there's more and more need to count with base load energy, both on gas and also on biogas, and also, of course, biofuel. So I think that not only in the short term, but looking a little bit more for there is a lot of space and room for those kind of projects in Colombia.
Thank you very much, Alejandro. I would like to thank all of the panelists. We don't have more time. This was very useful, especially for pinpointing specific sectors and specific opportunities, but also specific challenges like the ones mentioned by Baggy that have to be addressed by both countries in order to further our relationships. So thank you very much to everyone, and I would like to give the word again to Christian so we can wrap up this event.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you so much to all the panelists. I would like to thank you once again to Esalios Pharma, Sharma Pharmaceutical Private Limited, Nine Alliance, Proclean Pharma, Bogota Chamber of Commerce, of course, FICI, our group of panelists. Thank you so much for your time. Our special guest of honor, thank you so much for your time. I believe we can take your questions and we can reply privately, or we can address the questions to each one of the panelists as our time is running short. Now, last but not the least, I would like to give the stage to Mr. Jaime Mantilla, who is the chairman of the India-Colombia Chamber of Commerce. Also, he is part of the board of directors of the Bogota Chamber of Commerce. So, Mr. Jaime, I would like to give you the stage to say the concluding remarks and final words. Jaime, ¿estás ahí? Bueno, no sé, creo que we have a technical difficulty. 1 second. Mr. Gajendra, are you? I don't know if you want to say some few remarks. Then I'm trying to contact Mr. Jaime Mantilla. I think he has some problem with the connection.
Okay, we had a very good session highlighting the opportunities. Also had the government of India's focus Latin strategy. Also had us. I think it was a great session. So your president able to attend and we would like to vote of thanks. Otherwise, we can just, and I would like to thank all the sponsors as well. Can just confirm.
No, I think there is some connectivity problem.
No issues, but I think it will unfair or so if able to attend it is fine. Otherwise we can we will surely miss your remark.
Yeah, no, he was connected earlier, but I don't know what happened with the connection right now. If you are, just let me make the call to find out.
Okay. My all participants just to bear with us for a moment because would not want participant from our partner to because he was there till last moment and he just lost it.
Yeah.
Just say a few words. Oh, okay, he's there.
No. He was having some issue with the connection. Just 2 minutes.
Okay, I just wanted to say,
something. It's okay.
yes, I just wanted to say that I've been in Colombia here doing business here for many years now, and Colombia is a very interesting area to do business, and there are opportunities to make money here. People have the wrong impression about Colombia because they watch probably too much Netflix, people, things like Escobar and things like that. That is not the true Colombia. When I go to India or I travel to UK, people always ask me, how can you be in Colombia? And this is a real misconception. You know, it's not that people are walking around here trying to take advantage of you or your personal health. I live in Bogota. I have an office in Bogota. I travel around. I travel on public transport. I don't feel intimidated here. And to do business with Colombians here is not difficult at all. There are many opportunities for people to do this. Similarly, I would say to our Colombian guests here that doing business in India is not difficult either. I know that it's always a matter of building up trust between two different cultures. Actually, the Colombian culture is not that much different to the Indian culture. We are very family-oriented people. We enjoy doing business. I would say that the Indian psyche is that we are born with a sense of business in our blood. So there are opportunities for both the countries to grow. I really do believe the governments can help in trying to align some of the policies between the two countries. And Colombia is opportunities here because 50 million people. We are the only country that has been truly democratic since the day it got its independence. Nobody else we've never had any coup here, nothing of that sort. A democratic country, politically stable. And as mentioned before, I think once in the last 20 years, we had negative growth. This year, everybody in the world is going to get negative growth. But the opportunities are here for the future. to do business. And we are open to help everybody through the Indian Colombian Chamber of Commerce. We can look at your inquiries and help you. Is looking forward to that.
Okay. No, you can go ahead. You can go ahead.
Yeah, I think we need more ambassadors, both here as well as in Colombia, for with Flourish. So thanks, Mr. Bhagwatrathan, for just giving this great insight. I also personally feel that unless ever you pay people here, so having a picture of from Netflixes and digital platform totally misleading. Interesting. Now, if you have got him, over to you. Yeah, Manish, you would like to say something? Because Manish ji does watch a lot of Netflix.
No, I think, Bhagwant, you are absolutely right. My own experience during visit to Colombia has been exactly what you said. I mean, yeah, we all do get colored by media and entertainment sector sometimes, but they also have to dramatize and capitulate things in 2 hours. So that's a challenge for them. But yeah, and even for business. I mean, when we had gone there, based on initial discussions, immediately the ministry gave time. Our investors went to the ministry. Their issues were addressed then and there. So that sort of proactiveness was absolutely incredible there. So I think we can call the session to a close now. And of course, we welcome anybody to write to all of us, either in Colombian chambers or FICCI, and we will try and give you some good partners in each other's countries.
Sure.
No, thank you so much. I think there is a technical difficulty with the connection of Mr. Jaime Mantilla, but he has sent regards and thank you to all the organizers for this special session. I know the time is running short at the moment. We count with his support. He's a very proactive person. He's very well known here in the city of Bogota and also in Colombia. So we can count with him in all the things related to the India-Colombia relationship. So unfortunately, he had some issues at the last moment, but this is part of the message that he has sent to all of you. So thank you so much. Thank you, Fiki, Manish,
Have a
and
good
Yendra
week.
for this organization, and see you next time. And to the sponsors. Thank you to our sponsors too.
Thank you, Christian.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hasta luego. Ciao.
Thanks,
Yes,
Manish.
thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Okay, thanks, John. Keep in touch.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much. Thank you, Kaushal. Thank you.
Bye.